drove through the accident and everything else. And we're driving, what is that? A Dodge Ram. It has a Hemi. And so if they put 120 on the dashboard, I believe that means you can go. I thought that's what it meant, but she didn't go 120, but she was close enough to where, you know, we know that it does have a Hemi in it. Amen. Amen. But we thank God for traveling grace. And my fiance couldn't come tonight. She's saving lives at the hospital. So I figured I'd come and continue to try to save some here. But one of the angels did come back with me tonight, and that is Jordan. Amen. Can we clap your hands because she argued up and down last night that she wanted to make sure she came back to church. And when we got home and we walked in the door, the first thing she said was, "When are we going back to that church?" I'm just grateful to have her in my life and have a desire. Amen. She woke up this morning studying the Bible, and on the way home she talked about the service on last night and the night before. Amen. So we're just grateful. The Bible says, train up a child in the way that they should go, and when they become old, they will not depart from it. Now we know that some do depart, but if you train them right, then the blood is not on your hand. Amen. But tonight I just simply want to preach, and I want to just teach tonight as well from a familiar passage of Scripture, 2 Corinthians chapter 4. 2 Corinthians chapter 4. And I hope that you brought your Bibles tonight. And if you did not, then look on with somebody else who's standing beside you. I tell people all the time, we don't leave home nowadays without our cell phones. When we're going to the mall, the movies, even school, don't come to church without your Bible. Don't come to church. 2 Corinthians chapter 4. And I want to look at verses 7, verse 8, verse number 9. But we have this treasure in earthen vessels, that the excellency of the power may be of God and not of ourselves. We are troubled on every side, yet not distressed. We are perplexed, but not in despair. We are persecuted, but not forsaken. We are cast down, but not destroyed. Cast down, but not destroyed. That's it. You may be seated. Amen. Just for a brief while, I want to talk from the subject, being triumphant in tough times. Being triumphant in tough times. This message may not be for everybody, but I do believe that it is for somebody who has been dealing with tough times. I don't believe that I'm surrounded in this building with a church pastor full of millionaires. I believe that many of us have had to deal with some financial burdens. Everybody in this building does not all have a good bill of health. We're having to deal with some tough medical circumstances. We're having to deal with some tough financial dilemmas. We're having to deal with some tough friends. We're having to deal with some tough family members who have left you high and dry and who have stabbed you in the back. But can I tell you that it's still an avenue. There's still possibility on how to be triumphant in these tough times. Seems seemingly that we continue to try to deal with the economic downfall of our government. Yeah. We're trying to deal with health care on all different forms and all different sides. But I want to let you know that even if health care in the United States is not successful, there is still a bomb in Gilead. Huh? So here it is, when we think that times are tough and we think that roads are rough, we serve a God that specializes in doing the impossible. I've come to discover in my life that when my back is against the wall, my back is against the wall because there is a reason. There is a reason, because I've come to understand, and David was better able to say that weeping only endures for a night, but joy comes in the morning. Now, you don't have to be a rocket scientist to understand that at midnight, at 12:01, it's a whole new day. It's still dark, but it's a new day. So just because it's dark in your life, don't misinterpret the darkness as being yesterday. Understand that even in the new day, it can still be dark, but the promise is that weeping will be over with and joy is on the way. So when we deal with tough times, nobody said, even in the Bible, there is no guarantee that every day is going to be smooth sailing. There is no guarantee that every day is going to be peaches and cream. There is no guarantee that you won't have any trials, any tribulations, and no trouble. But I stopped by tonight to let you know from the platform of my own personal experiences that in this life, some rain has got to fall. If we didn't have rain, we wouldn't have rainbows. If we didn't have troubles, we didn't have problems, we would not know that God is a problem solver. I believe that there ought to be somebody in this building who's under the acute awareness that you have experienced God bringing you out when you could not see your way out, when you did not understand what was going on, you couldn't trace him, but you started to trust him, and the more you trust him, the more he became your shepherd, and the shepherd became your leader. Huh? So when we look at tough times are really not tough when you see God. There is a blessing tucked in the midst of every burden, but we have to not panic. Our posture ought to be praise. One thing that I like about David, when trouble came, David did not panic. David did not bow his head into despair. But when trouble came, David's default setting was to remember what God had already brought him through. Now understand what a default setting is. In other words, if you have a computer system or you have your cell phone and it begins to malfunction, it begins to mess up, and you can't figure it out, then what you do, you go back to factory settings and you go back to default settings, and it will put the phone back to where it was when you first got it. In other words, it would eliminate the problem and give you an opportunity to start all over again. So what I'm trying to tell you is, when tough times come, you got to go to what you know, and that is the Word of God, your default setting. So being triumphant, I'll preach if you help me, but if you don't help me, I'm going to still preach. Being triumphant in tough time. Paul talks here to believers, and he's telling believers, first of all, he told the believers about Jesus Christ. If you go up one more verse, in verse number 6, Paul says, "For God, who commanded the light to shine out of darkness, has shined in our hearts to give us the light of the knowledge of the glory of God." So what Paul was telling the people before he talked about their problems, he had to tell them about Christ. And so what Paul was saying was, God sent his son into the world, then God allowed his son to get inside of you, and if you got him inside of you, that means you have the same power that he had. So when tough times come, you got the power to deal with tough times. That's why Paul was able to say, "I can do all things through Christ that strengthens me." So he talked about about Christ. He talked about who God was. He talked about what God did. But then he began to talk about our own situations and circumstances. And sometimes for us to experience God and sometimes for us to see God, we have to first of all assess our situations and see where we are. Then when you see where you are, look where you were and then consider where you were when God found you. And so now Paul stops and he tells the Corinthian church on his second boat ride there, he tells them in verse number 7, we have a treasure in this earthen vessel. We have something on the inside that everybody just don't have. We've got something that is more precious than any ruby. We've got something that you can't take lightly. We got something that the builders rejected, but we've got something that became the chief cornerstone. We have a treasure inside of an earthen vessel, inside of your body, inside of your humanity. And I'm so glad that it wasn't because of what I've done, it wasn't because of my pitfalls that I'm still alive, but it's because I got something on the inside that won't let me die. David said, I will live and not die to declare the works of the Lord. Even David himself thought about committing suicide. You don't believe me? The Bible said, David said, if I had wings like a morning dove, I would fly away and be at rest. David was dealing with trouble, but he understood that after that I can't die until I accomplish my purpose. So Paul tells the Corinthians on his second letter, I'm teaching if you let me teach, and let the text tell the truth. He says that the excellency of the power may be of God and not of ourselves. Now let me help you real quickly in verse 8. He said, we are troubled on every side, yet not distressed. Have you ever wondered, have you ever looked when you got saved, before you got saved, everything was really going good. You didn't have to stress yourself about getting up to come to church on Sunday morning. You didn't have to stress yourself out, Pastor, about coming to a revival during the middle of the week to hear some handsome, light-skinned, bald-headed man from Little Rock come and preach to you the gospel. You didn't have to worry about that before you got saved. But it seems that when you got saved, trouble started to come. I stopped and I thought about it. God, I'm preaching. God, I'm singing. God, I'm living for you, and I have more trouble than a dope dealer. Got more trouble than a prostitute. I'm about to help somebody. And I wondered, Lord, why is it that I have so much trouble? He said, you are troubled on every side. In other words, every side simply means exactly what it said. Every time I turn around, I'm bumping into trouble. Why is it the saved have to deal with so much trouble? And God spoke to me and said, I allowed you to have trouble because I knew you could handle it. And the dope dealer wouldn't get trouble because I knew he couldn't handle it. If I gave him trouble, he'll keep everybody up all night talking about his trouble. But I allowed you to experience trouble because I knew that you could handle it. So the better person, the greatest person that he could use to talk about trouble had to be Paul. Understand that Paul wasn't always saved. Paul didn't always have it together. Paul, at one particular point in time, he was persecuting Christians when his name was Saul. But he went to persecute him at first. Now he's coming to preach to him. Come on. He went to confine him at first, and now he's coming to convert him. Paul, who was Saul, he had been shipwrecked. He had been beaten and left for dead. He had been backstabbed by his friends and even by his families. If anybody could tell the story on how to make it through tough times, it had to be Paul. So he says, we are troubled on every side, yet not distress. Trouble simply means alarm. He said there are things that will happen in your life, David. There are things that will come up that will cause you to be shocked. They will catch you off guard. But don't don't you understand that your storms, your crises, your mishaps, your mistakes, your troubles, your pitfalls did not catch God by surprise? So while you're being alarmed, Paul puts a comma there and he said, yet not distress. In other words, distress simply means you're hedged in and there's no way out. Paul said it's not that you hedged in and ain't no way out, because we serve a God who specializes in making ways out of no way. Now, I was pretty good. I was pretty good at elementary school where they begin to talk about periods, commas, exclamation points. And one thing that I discovered about a comma doesn't mean stop. It simply means pause.
That's all.
And so what Paul was actually saying was, we are troubled on every side. In other words, the enemy would say, put a period there and allow you to stay in your trouble. But Paul said, we are troubled on every side, comma. In other words, pause, because something's getting ready to take place. He said, we are troubled on every side, yet not distressed. In other words, God has a way of turning your trouble into a yet not distressed. So, I like Paul. I love Paul. I love this particular text because I've seen it, I've used it, I've experienced it. And then he says, we are perplexed, but not in despair. Perplexed simply means we are at a loss. We have lost some things, Flo, that were dear to us. We don't know how we're going to make it. I reach for my pockets. I don't have any money. I look for my friends. I don't have any friends. I don't have any family. I am in despair.
All right.
What can I do? I'm perplexed, Pastor. My back is against the wall. He said we are perplexed, but not in despair. Despair simply means without resolution. In other words, there is a solution to your problem. There is an antidote to your sickness. I know you can't see the light at the end of the tunnel, but God says He is able to do exceedingly and abundantly above what you can even ask or think, according to the power that works inside of you. And the reason that you are still in what you're going through is because you're not working the power that is inside of you. God can only do what your faith will allow Him to do. The reason you can't get a breakthrough is because you're not allowing a breakup to happen inside of you. So Paul says we are persecuted, but not forsaken. There's a story of a bird that flew one day, and he flew and he landed on an old tree. And the bird began to talk to the tree. And the bird asked the tree, he said, Mr. Tree, you have been here for a long time.
Come on now.
He talked to the tree and he chirped to the tree and he said, Mr. Tree, you've been here for over 40 years. Your roots are in the ground and your branches are high as they can go. Can you tell me how you've remained so long? You've seen storm after storm. You've seen rain after. How is it that you are still standing? Using my imagination, the tree began to talk to the bird, and he told the bird, well, the reason I've been able to stay so long because I've been around long enough to know that every storm has passed over. He never met a storm that did not pass. So what I'm trying to tell you is tonight, if you look back at why you're still standing, there are some storms that should have taken you out. There are some storms that should have broken your branches, but you are still alive because your roots were on a firm foundation. The songwriter said, on Christ, the solid rock, I will stand. All other ground are sinking sand. But then I understand that not only do storms come with God's permission, but troubles also come with God's provision. If God ordained it, then God will maintain it. God God did not allow you to survive for nothing. God didn't keep you alive just so you could continue to be miserable. God kept you alive and preserved you for a purpose. Don't you think that God could have killed you when he should have killed you, but he did not, because he had a plan for you? Jeremiah said it better. Jeremiah chapter 29 verse number 11. God spoke to Jeremiah and he said, Jeremiah, I know the plans that I have for you, plans to give you good and not of evil, to give you hope and an expected end. So yeah, there were some car crashes that I've been into. There are some gunshots that I've had to endure. There are some prison experience I had to go through. But the reason that I'm still alive is because my expected end has not come. So the enemy would desire to kill you. The enemy would desire to take you out, but you cannot die until God gets a contribution out of your life. So here it is. Paul tells us how to be triumphant in tough times. Story says that a preacher went to New York and he was going to set up revival, and he was going to do revival for the whole summer. Story says that when he got there, the story says that when he got there, he set up on the corner and he put his tent up, and every weekend he began to preach. And every weekend he began to preach. Men and women began to walk down the aisle and get saved. And every time he preached, it seemed like one drug dealer came down and gave his life, and then the drug dealer later on became a deacon. The more he preached every weekend, the pimp came down the aisle and later became a preacher. Somebody know where I'm going. The more he preached every weekend, the mistress came down the aisle and became a missionary. The more he preached, come on now, folks were getting saved. I'm about to help you. Folks were getting saved, and so it was a drug territory. It was a drug-fested environment. It was where the mob, they liked to melee, and there was their environment, there was their habitat. And so the godfather of the mob, he called all of his agency and he called all of his workers in. He said, look, I've been looking at the books for the past couple of weeks, and money looking funny. Money is coming up short. Can somebody tell me where is my money going? Where are my workers? And one of the agents stood up and said, well, listen, Godfather, I know that things are not like they used to be, but I can tell you what the problem is. And he said, tell me what the problem is. And so the worker told him, he said, that is a preacher who is been down on the corner for the past few weeks, and he has been preaching. And you know the one you used to have running your door, well, he got saved, and now he's a deacon. You know the woman you used to have turning tricks, she got saved, and now she's a missionary. You know the one that you had out there pimping. Now he's the preacher. So that's where your money is going. He said, okay. He said, this is what I want to do. He called Ricky. Ricky was his hitman. So he called Ricky up, and anytime he wanted to take somebody out, he would call Ricky. He said, Ricky, look, I'm gonna give you $20,000, and I'm gonna give you this rifle. I want you to go down to that corner, and I want you to take that preacher out. I want you to kill that preacher, and this $20,000 is yours, and the rifle is yours. And so the story says that Ricky went down to the corner, and the preacher was up preaching a revival, and Ricky got ready to get to the stage, and he loaded his gun, and he aimed his gun, and he began to shoot at the preacher, and he couldn't get to the preacher because something was blocking him on the right side. So Ricky, he went around and he posted up on the left side of the stage, and he tried to shoot the preacher, and he could not shoot the preacher because somebody was in the way. And so Ricky left, and he couldn't understand how come somebody kept getting in the way. And so the next morning something caused him to panic. So the next morning he went to the preacher's hotel room, and he knocked on the preacher's door, and the preacher came to the door, and he said, may I help you? And Ricky said, here you go, sir. And he gave the preacher the $20,000, and he gave him the rifle, and Ricky began to walk off. And so the preacher said, hold up. He said, where are you going? He said, sir, listen to me. He said, I was hired to kill you, and this is the $20,000 that they paid me with, and this is the rifle that he gave me to shoot you. And so he said, I couldn't do it. And so he began to walk off. And so the preacher called him back. He said, come on back, Rick. He said, I got to ask you one question. He said, if you were hired to kill me, why didn't you kill me? Ricky simply looked up at the preacher and he said, Mr. Preacher, he said, every time I got ready to kill you, he said, I went to the right side of the stage and I saw a man that was standing in between you and I. He said, then I went to the left side of the stage and I saw a man that was standing between you and I. And so the preacher began to think, and he began to reminisce. I didn't have anybody that was standing beside me on the stage. Can you tell me what this man looked like? And Ricky said, sure enough, he had eyes like a ball of fire. He had feet like grass. He had thighs like a rainbow. And then the preacher looked back and said, you know what? I know exactly who that was. That was my Rose of Sharon. That was my Lily of the Valley. That was my wheel in the middle of a wheel. That was my midnight ride. That was my four-day travel. That was Jesus, my grandmother's friend. That was Jesus, Abel's vindicator. That was Jesus, right? That was Jesus. He was born a helpless baby, but yet spoke spinning world into existence. He was cradled in somebody else's cradle. He was buried in somebody else's tomb. He ate at somebody else's table. And he rode somebody else's animals. Yet and still all things belong to him. Can I get one witness? The Bible says that Herod could not kill him. And Satan could not seduce him. Sinners could not resist him. And death could not destroy him. He is the Rose of Sharon. He is the great I am. And when you begin to think about it, can't nobody do you like the Lord. Can't nobody do you like Jesus. Somebody said, I had to deal with some bad situations. I had to deal with some difficult circumstances. But when I began to trust God, He gave me strength like no other. I went in like Clark Kent, but I came out like Superman with an S on my chest. The enemy tried to kill me, but Jesus came and grabbed me, and every day is sweeter than the day before. What can wash away my sins? Nothing but the blood of Jesus. The songwriter said, when you're dealing with tough times and difficult storms, be not dismayed. Whatever betide you, God will take care of you. God will take care of you. Shake your neighbor's hand. Shake your neighbor's hand. Shake your neighbor's hand. And tell them, after all I've been through, I'm still here. I'm still alive. I'm still alive. Won't he do it? Won't he do it? He's not just God on a Sunday morning, he's a God on a Wednesday night. There's nothing too hard for God. There's nothing too hard for God. You can be triumphant in tough times with the power of God. You may have experienced situations where you didn't think you were going to make it. But the songwriter wrote, I know somehow, and I know some way that things are going to work out somehow. No matter what you've been through, no matter what you're wrestling with, God specializes in doing what men think are impossible. I don't know about you, but I've tried him and I've trusted him. And tonight is your night. I shared last night, don't leave here the same way that you came. Songwriter said it better this way. He's sweet, I know. Oh, he's sweet, I know. Storm clouds may rise, strong winds may blow. I'll tell the world wherever I go that I found a Savior, and he's sweet, I know. He's sweet, I know. Amen. Stand to your feet all over this building. There may be somebody here tonight. We want to pray. Amen. Every eye closed. While no one's looking, if you're here tonight and you have not accepted Jesus Christ, don't leave here tonight without it. Always say it, and I shared last night that life is too short and eternity is too long.